Welcome back to another day on the Kentucky Adventure Tour. Today we'll be exploring the frigid tracks and trails through the Appalachian foothills, atop the Cumberland Plateau, and through the backwoods hollers between the Southfork, Elkview, and the city of Matewan, West Virginia. This is a land of sharp winding ridges, rippling Clearwater creeks, and rehabilitated forests. A land where pioneers carved farmsteads out of the wilderness, coal miners unionized to fight for their rights, and the Hatfield and McCoy families lived, feuded, and notoriously died. Bill and I had camped at the Southfork, Elkview. Heading east from that camp, the track is easy and scenic. The weather we encountered on this February holiday weekend was frigid, but at least today the sun was shining. If you saw our last video, you'll know that the heater core in our Jeep on this trip was pretty much plugged, so we were both bundled up because we had very little heat in the Jeep. And those cold temperatures led to another unanticipated problem on this trip. Bill and I both envisioned a grand drone shot coming down the creek as the Jeep drove over the bridge. But I'll tell you what, this is not the kind of drone shot I imagined. Instead, I had to bring that drone right back down and try and figure out what the problem was. The camera just didn't function properly, and that's when it finally told me the batteries were just too cold. Thankfully, we got it warmed up again just in time to view this. As much as I didn't enjoy being cold on this trip, that kind of video is exactly what makes this so worth it.
Not a star in the sky could steal your light. You are the diamond in the dark. No oceans out there can wash you away. There is no way that you can't break. The good in you makes a better me, and you're easily the best part I see. You're a fighter, you're a fighter. Now I see what life could be when you're standing next to me. Fighter, I'm higher, higher, higher than ever before. I'm higher, higher, higher than ever before. The good in you makes a better part I see. You're a fighter, you're a fighter. Now I see what life could be when you're standing next to me. You're a fighter, you're a fighter. I'm higher, higher, higher than ever before. I'm higher, higher. I'm higher than ever before.
It was ironic to me how such a drastic incline at the beginning of this section of trail could lead to what almost looks like the flatlands. But it's not, because every now and then you could peek beyond that plateau to the valleys and hollows below you.
The
Don't think just because you're up on top of that mountain plateau that you're not going to find lots of mud holes. There are enough mud holes to keep anybody happy up here. We couldn't tell driving through this area whether this was reclaimed coal mine or a timbered area, or maybe even both. And looking into it later, I still couldn't find a clear answer on that. But the topography here, and the fact that this forest just didn't quite seem to be able to get a foothold here, that suggested to us that this was actually a rehabilitated mine area. Today there's a vast network of trails on top of this mountain plateau. So as always, make sure you have your maps handy so that you don't get lost up there. Eventually I decided that if I couldn't get warm in the Jeep, I was better off trying to get warm walking in front of the Jeep. I have to admit, it made for some pretty good pictures. And if you're wondering about that consistent crackling noise, that's how frozen this trail was as we drove on it. Pioneers started settling in this area probably in the early 1800s. It seems like it was almost a feud in several of the counties in this area as to who could claim that their ancestor came here earlier, and if any of them arrived before 1800. Many of the people that eventually settled in this area carved small farmsteads out of the hillsides and the hollers. They would generally settle near the clear water streams and build a two-room house out of clapboard made from the local trees. Families would also typically build one fireplace with a chimney made out of the local stone and clay, used to heat the home and to cook over. Families hacked small gardens out of this wilderness country, planting potatoes, onions, but primarily planting corn. Farmsteads also typically had chickens, hogs, and a cow or two. Around 1939, a local farmsteader by the name of Frank Short commented on the automobiles coming into the area. Some thieves stole the last ham from his barn, and he believed that they could escape so quickly and leave undetected because they were driving an automobile. His niece's husband also had owned an automobile at one point, and he'd promptly driven it off the road and rolled it down the hill, almost killing himself. Based on these, Mr. Short concluded that mere folk shouldn't have automobiles. They were simply just too dangerous. I can't imagine what he would think of the vehicles available today, driving through the roads hacked out of the wilderness. Gee, I can't imagine why you stopped.
A little bit of a situation.
A little bit of a situation? I don't know. You think you should get the chainsaw out for that one?
I'm hoping I can just move it.
I know, I'm just teasing.
But it may not want to move.
We'll see.
But I thought about going over on the bank, but I was afraid to just slide me right into it and scratch it up my deepest in the window.
Yeah. Hello, little tree. Let's see whether he can just move you or not. He's got a lot of branches, doesn't he?
If I can go downhill with it or need to break it off the other one.
I don't know. Huh?
I might have to saw it off.
Okay, well, you can saw it off.
Okay, no, there we go.
Yeah, don't fall down that hill.
Stubborn little critter.
Well, yeah. He's got lots of limbs. He says, I don't want to go. Please don't fall down that hill.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Are you sitting on top of it?
Yeah, it's snow too, you know what I mean?
Well, it's off the road.
Yeah, I lost I high centered, you know what I mean?
Yes, you high centered. I saw it. Let's see whether you can get back up the hill. Nice job. Here we go. Soon after we left that little tree behind, we found a very worthwhile place to stop and explore a little bit. Rainfall or snowmelt had clearly washed out the end of this lake at some point, but the beavers, they wouldn't let it go. Back on the main trail again, we're now in search of a good place to stop for lunch. But when Bill's driving, not just any place will do. It has to be somewhere beautiful and scenic. Not only were we not finding any good open spots for lunch, we also knew that private property bordered this particular trail fairly closely. We wanted to make sure that we were staying on the trail. We actually got a little confused when we got to this gate because the map, it says close gate behind you. But out west, most places, if the gate is open, you better leave it open. Even today, as I'm making this video, I still wonder, should we have left that gate open or should we have closed it? I guess we'll never know. Not very many miles down from that beaver dam, we found ourselves back on paved scenic roads, still looking for an appropriate lunch spot. Thankfully, we finally found one. Although Bill and I generally enjoy the hidden dirt tracks of the Kentucky Adventure Tour more than the pavement, these particular last sections of the day provided us with some interesting and unique sights, including just a small glimpse into the coal mining history of the area. Many of these mines and transfer stations must still remain open, because as we drove further down the road, we also found another sight that was surprising to us. Have you ever seen this many trains lined up next to each other filled with coal in the middle of nowhere before? Neither had we. We'd intended to stay at a campsite that night, but we actually couldn't find it. So instead, we turned around and came back here. Welcome to the land of the Hatfields and the McCoys. We found this little campground, cabins and all, in Matewan, West Virginia. We don't often find ourselves splurging for an Airbnb or a cabin or something with a roof over our heads very often, but it was so cold, and with the Jeep not having heat, that we decided this one time we just wanted to get warm for a change. This particular cabin didn't have a full kitchen, but it did have running water and a hot shower. The campground had several campsites with utilities including electricity down by the river, as well as several other larger cabins that did include a full kitchen. But for our purposes for the evening, I simply brought in that camp stove and went out on the back porch to cook dinner for us. Bill and I both found these tiny cabins at Hatfield's Hideout to be very clean and well stocked, despite the fact we had simply walked in unannounced and hoped for the best. Hatfield's Hideaway is located right on the Southfork River, and we had a beautiful view right down to that river off the back porch. Although this campground is near Matewan, West Virginia, this side of the river is actually Kentucky. You have to go all the way back into town and cross the bridge to get back into West Virginia. And while normally I'd enjoy regaling you with some tales of the Hatfields and the McCoys that feuded over this land, I think I'm going to save that story for another day. I hope you enjoyed our adventure today, and I hope you'll come back again tomorrow when this is what the road home looks like. But if you've followed our adventures for any length of time, you'll know that we don't usually just drive the road home. Usually we try and find unique and interesting places to stop and break up our day. And tomorrow, this is where we're headed. Coonskin Park, located just outside of Charleston, West Virginia. So if you like tree-lined ravines and small waterfalls, I hope you'll come back again and join us. But in the meantime, go out and find your own adventure.